Okay, welcome to my place. My name is Goody, the co-founder of that little cookie in the bag, that snack you didn't know you were waiting for, Goody's Granola. And I'd like to introduce to you a gentleman that I met maybe 50 years ago. And we connected on Facebook. And his name is MARC EMBREE, and he's a gentleman from Nebraska. He's a baritone bass opera singer, very successful career. He is a associate teacher, a professor rather, at Michigan State University in the music college. And again, I wanted you to meet MARC EMBREE. MARC, say hello to everybody.
Hi, good afternoon.
How have you been, MARC?
Doing great, doing great. It's hard to
Time.
believe it's been over 50 years now.
Yes, it has been. It has been. And things have changed a lot a bit. We have gotten older.
That's for
We've
sure.
progressed in our lives. And I watched you on a video, and I had no idea how good of a singer you are. It's like an amazing thing. And the first thing I wanted to ask you, I met you during the late 60s, early 70s.
That's right.
That was the generation of Woodstock. I had just been at Woodstock for 3 days, which I would never do again at this age. I mean, it's really a young man's sport.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was in August. In September, I was flying on Ozark Airlines to Le Mars, Iowa, from LaGuardia Airport. And the music, and I was like in a culture shock. Guys picked me up from the college, which I never met. And I don't know, it was like 2 in the afternoon or whatever. It was like a 5-hour flight to Le Mars, Iowa. There was like a stop in every state from here to
Right.
And first thing I noticed is 6 packs of beer under their arms.
Yeah.
And I have never seen more beer consumed until I went out to the Midwest. It was an amazing thing.
Well, they used to like it, that's for sure. Yeah.
The music that I was exposed to back then was, like rock and roll. Like there was metal coming out. There was like Cream and Jimi Hendrix, and there was Motown coming out. And
Great music. I mean, it was great.
But this was all part of your generation too.
Yeah.
And how did all of this transition to opera? You were exposed to all of this music. Where did
I mean, funnily enough, I still love that music. Carole King and James Taylor, Fifth Dimension. Simon and Garfunkel. Even the Beatles. It's great. It's the real pop music for our generation anyway. It's funny. I mean, it's a kind of a wild story. I'll try to be brief with it. I grew up in the Sandhills of Nebraska, which is out in the western part of the state. It's cattle country and very, very, very isolated, very, very sparsely populated. So it was like kind of the opposite of your Brooklyn upbringing. I mean, there was
absolutely
there were more people in your building than there were in my hometown. So
more people in my building than in students in the college.
Yeah, exactly. There were more students in the college than in my whole county. Yeah. So it was a culture shock for me in almost the opposite way. But I played basketball in high school, and I was pretty good for a little school. So I got recruited by some small schools. Westmark was about 1,200 when we were there, and I came over to interview with Coach Knutson, the basketball coach. And that night, I heard the Westmark Chorale sing, directed by Frank Summerside, and I'd never heard anything like that. They did a Bach motet called Jesu meine Freude, and I was really taken by it. And I went over and sang for him, and they offered me a scholarship that was roughly the same as the basketball scholarship. And I thought, I'll be singing for a lot longer then I'll be playing basketball. Plus, I mean, they had a great basketball team at that time, so I probably wouldn't even have made the first team, maybe not even the second team. But I got into music, and and I found that I love it. The same with the theater. Ruth Monroe, our mutual teacher, who was a great influence on me, and I kind of got into it. It's very strange. I was very, very shy, staggeringly shy, and wasn't used to kind of mingling or any small talk or anything like that. And in the theater, we got they wrote the lines for you, so all I had to do was learn the lines, and you could meet people. And
Oh, great.
and then I kind of found that I loved it, and I had a great passion for it. And I owe a lot to Ruth Monroe and Lawrence Ebert, Dr. Lawrence Ebert, who was our composition music theory teacher there. They were both very patient with me and knew that I was trying, and knew that I was wanting to learn, even though I was kind of behind the eight ball, because I was a basketball player going into music. And so it was a great atmosphere for me, and the students were great and supportive, and and it was a very interesting time to be in college, as you know. It's like I started in '67, and '68 was it '68 or '69 was Woodstock, but like the whole
69,
planet,
69.
yeah, the whole planet changed. We were wearing jackets and ties to class my freshman year, and everybody was wearing tie dye and bell bottoms.
Well, no, I remember when I got down there, remember Dean Stone?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Dean Stone, and when I got there, I heard that the year before there was no dancing on campus.
Right.
Well, I got there
my,
in '69.
yeah, my
And,
first year, they had the first dance. That I think that was '60s. They had the first. I went to the first dance that they had ever had on that campus in the old gym.
well,
And
experience.
even for me, a rube, a rustic from Nebraska, thought that was kind of silly. But
Yeah, well, no, I heard you couldn't smoke cigarettes on campus, and it was a whole different. It was a Methodist school.
yeah.
Um, I remember by the time Dean Stone left, and for various reasons, he was getting a hard time from some of the students, and whatever. But by the time he left, and by the time I left, they had co-ed dorms.
Right.
I don't know if you remember that. There was
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I was living with some girl, some young woman in the dorm. I ended up in Colorado with her. And it was a whole different scene. I used to hang out basically at the Black Student Union.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was me, a couple other white guys, and one Winnebago Indian.
Yeah.
Levi, and not Levi Strauss, just Levi. But we had a great time. Now, when you auditioned, were you singing opera?
No, not at all. I mean,
Oh,
it's I studied classical music. Wayne Mitchell was my teacher, and I worked legit classical music, and my training is traditional Italianate uh, method. But I mean, I learned a few opera arias, and we did do an opera. We did the Marriage of Figaro, which Wayne Mitchell conducted, and Ruth Monroe directed it. In my senior year, we did the Marriage of Figaro. We had quite a crew. Wonderful cast, and it was a great experience. But I had no intention of going into opera at all. When I graduated, I went up to the Twin Cities, and I auditioned for a production company, and I got in a group called we called ourselves the Six Park East. There were 3 women, 3 men, and a band, and we played in nightclubs for a couple of years. Back in the day, all the 4 and 5 star hotels had nightclubs. They had a floor show, and oftentimes they would have we would have our show, and then right after us they'd have another show, and then we'd come back and do we do 2, 3, 4 shows a night. and it was we played all over the country, all over Canada.
No kidding.
Yeah, it was
This is out of college?
right out of college. I mean,
Wow.
we
Amazing.
graduated in May, and
Working in June.
July I'm
Yeah.
doing a industrial show, and we were playing Chicago in August. So
Amazing.
yeah, and it was. I mean, it was a great time. I mean, I was paid very well. I mean, I wish I were making that kind of money now. I mean, with inflation, and we stayed in first class hotels. Often got our food. I had no mortgage, no car payments, nothing, and it was terrific for me because I got to stand up and perform, 6 nights a week, sometimes 2, 3, 4 shows a night. And for a shy kid from Nebraska, I had to learn fast. And I had great college. Rod Essig, I don't know if you remember Rod from Westmar. He was in the group. He was a tenor, wonderful singer. And Rod is now a big time agent with CAA, the agency he runs the Nashville.
No kidding.
He's tremendously successful and has done very, very well and manages some of the great, the great artists, the great country and Western and pop artists and some actors. And we're still in touch, and we talk once or twice a year. But it was a fun time. I thought, what's so hard about show business? They're paying me. I don't have any bills. Then I took back in the day they had red eye flights 3 in the morning to New Orleans. And I auditioned for a musical there, Brigadoon, and I got the part. And so and they liked me, and they offered me a graduate assistantship, a teaching assistantship at Tulane University, which I took, and it all kind of changed my life. I have a long association with the theater there, but what happened my first year in graduate school, my teachers handed me an audition thing, and he says, this is a Metropolitan Opera auditions, the Guild auditions, and he says, you should do this. It'd be a good experience for you. So I literally learned 5 arias and sang the audition, won the Gulf Coast regional audition, and ended up in the semifinals in New York. And, at that day, I was kind of an opera singer, because then the dean of Tulane gave me a grant to go study in Berlin. So I studied in the opera school and in the Lieder school, German art song school, and started getting opera contracts. I mean, it was it was like, and if you'd asked me, in 1971 when I graduated, if I were going to become an opera singer, I thought, no.
I want to interrupt you for 1 second.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm sorry, I'm kind of rattling
on.
Oh,
that's okay. I love it. It makes my job a lot easier. First time that came out of your body, opera, how did it feel? I mean, did you have to progress where you were a little maybe embarrassed or withdrawn, where you had to take it up, where there's steps to it? I just like to know how you felt as a person.
Well,
I've seen live operas, and I'm watching these voices come out of people. I'm going, holy shit! It's like an amazing thing. It's got to be such a rush. Like when I was an actor on stage, and this was just words and emotions. And I'm not knocking that, though. The time was fly. If you were in a show an hour, 2 hours, that was the quickest time, hour, 2 hours you ever had in your life. I got to know how it felt the first time you did this.
Well, I mean, well, you and I both had the same kind of training from Ruth Monroe. I've never thought of myself as an opera singer. I still consider myself an actor. And you know, and it's all the same process. Knowing the text, I mean, the challenge is you have to go through the whole emotional process within a certain framework of what the composer has set.
Mhm.
But it's the same to me, the same sensation. I mean, it's like in training, an opera singer is like a professional athlete. Their whole respiratory system has to be at that level, of training and fitness, because it's really a challenging uh, life, and you have to have endurance, and you have to have focus and concentration. But it's like I always liken it to fitness in the gym. It's like you don't go and start lifting 300 pounds or whatever. You gradually grow and establish a routine. And it's the same, to me, the same routine now as it was, not exactly the same, but the same idea of kind of daily maintenance and making sure everything stays working and stays connected, coordinated, and in working condition. It's a little more challenging when you're 73 years old, going to be 74 next month, but
I just turned 74 in May.
but it's the same. And as a teacher, I emphasize this with my students, and the ones who do it succeed. The ones that just rely on kind of a natural talent have a kind of head start at the beginning, but if they don't work and they don't do it, they don't do the routine, they don't excel. So
Was this something that was passed down to you from the teachers at Westmore?
well, it started there. Absolutely, it started there. It's certainly with Ruth Monroe about character building, and it's like I still when I'm creating parts. I mean, I'm not as active as I was, but I still create a autobiography for the character, find out, study the history, study the writer, study the composer, study who what the world was like, what's the history of the world at this time that we're doing, that the play of the opera takes place, and discovering kind of their, I don't know, for lack of a better word, psychological makeup. How do they think, and how do they look at, it's like the inside and the outside, and the outside and the inside.
Or would you
And
write down? Would you write down a backstory?
yeah, yeah, and I remember sitting in Ruth Monroe's apartment, and that's how she says, "Now we got to, you've got to build your characters. You've got to decide, And I mean, I've had several teachers since her, but she really got my imagination going and allowed me to have the confidence to make those kind of decisions. And of course, you make more bad decisions than you do good decisions, but you always learn, from overcoming your mistakes, I guess.
We talked about those bad decisions were the right decisions when you made it.
Yeah, that's a good point. You make a good point.
They just turned out bad. But Ruth Monroe, I remember she took me under her wing.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I used to go up to her apartment. She helped me. I auditioned for the Guthrie Theater. She helped me with a monologue opening monologue from Richard III. I didn't get in, but I did a good job on the monologue.
But the thing is, that you got there. I mean, that's a staggering accomplishment, really.
Yeah, no, it was great. I had a great time. I was getting lead roles, and probably the main reason I was getting these roles is because it was a small school. Like we talked about before, there are some advantages with a small school. You should get a little more individual attention. It's more of a cliquey thing, where you go to a large university, you might have 500 people in a theater department.
Right. No, I mean, I feel I was very, because I mean, it's like when I started school there, I knew nothing. You know, I mean, it was like I really didn't
I'm in
know.
the same way. I never did this before.
Yeah, and
I'm
so we got to do a lot of things, but people like Ruth Monroe and Lawrence Ebert, Dr. Ebert, you know, they did take a personal interest in us, and they did, I was painfully shy, and I was, almost, you know, in a terrified mood most of the time, and Doc Ebert allowed me the confidence to kind of build myself and build up self-esteem and build up courage and confidence, and it was because of them.
They were terrific. But what
you
I
know
want to do is I want to talk about your further journey.
okay.
What were you singing when you got out of Westmore with this group? What kind of music?
Oh, we did.
Other
Well,
tunes?
back then, the people who could afford to go to nightclubs were from, their youth was in the 30s and the 40s. So we did a show of music from the 1930s, which is fabulous music.
Oh,
And we
good.
did music from the 1940s, which is also really, big band, wonderful, wonderful stuff. And then we had a show that was what they call the contemporary, so it had a lot of Broadway tunes and had a lot of kind of light pop. But we did covers like Fifth Dimension and people like that. So it was wonderful stuff, pretty sophisticated stuff. We had great arranger, and they had terrific musicians, and so we didn't do, I mean, we would do like rock songs that were like Muzak versions of them.
Right.
It's like, so because and now it'd be like I don't know, that's 50 years ago for our music. So in 1970, music from the 40s and the 30s, it wasn't that long ago. So it was only 20
So
years.
from there, you went into opera.
Right.
Then you auditioned for the Met.
Well, they have a series of auditions for the Met, so it's like you aren't necessarily auditioning for the Met, but you're auditioning. It's kind of a PR thing for them.
Okay.
Uh, and then I mean, it's still going on. I send kids all the time to the auditions, and
You stayed in New
you
York
know,
after that.
I didn't get a lot of money, but right now, they get if you make it to a certain level, you get quite outstanding monetary rewards, like $10,000, $20,000, and
Yeah.
the exposure to opera companies, opera people, conductors, stage directors, and the great thing for me, like when I won, that was back before, I think I won $300, even, counting for inflation, that'd
That
be
was a
like,
nice piece of change back then, 300.
well, back then it wasn't insignificant.
300 bucks.
It wasn't insignificant. I think I bought a new suit so I could look good on the stage. But the thing is, every year I could go back and sing, and they would give me a little financial reward. I would get $500 or $700, and that would pay for my lessons. Again, this is 50 years ago, so you have to understand things are a little more expensive now. But I could pay for my lessons. I could pay for my voice lessons, my coaching, to learn the roles and stuff. And
Did
so
you
it was.
work in New York?
What's that?
Did you get work in New York?
Oh yeah, I worked. I lived in New York for several years, and I worked at the New York City Opera, which was at that time at Lincoln Center. It's kind of a different company. There's still a New York City Opera
They're still in
that
existence. Yeah.
that exists, but it's kind of different. Back then, we had a regular season. We had 2 seasons, and we toured to Washington and Los Angeles. But I was there for, I want to say, I think 8 seasons. I was there for 5 years, and then in the '90s I was there for a little while. But I was back in the day in the go. Of course, at the time I was a kid. I didn't realize it was the golden years, you know. So we had unbelievable artists at that time.
You
And
have been very fortunate that you got actually all this work straight out of college. It's
yeah, no, I was very lucky. I mean,
absolutely, but you have the talent. If you didn't have the talent, you wouldn't have been there.
and I mean, a lot of, I mean, there's luck, you know. I mean, and being, you know, like I got my grant to go study in Berlin because I was at a cocktail party and the dean of the school was there and he had seen me in a show and he says, "Oh, we got this grant. Why don't you apply for it?" You know what I mean? It was just sheer dumb luck.
How
And
was it living in Berlin?
well, back in the day, you know, back in the 70s, it was still part of, it was still
East
the
West.
wall.
East, yeah, yeah.
And so Berlin was, it was still, Berlin itself was still part of the four powers, you know, the United States, Great Britain, and France.
Yeah.
And then East Berlin was Russia, but it was still under the same governance as they had right after the Second World War. So the German government, the West, was pouring money in there. So we had, you know, opera theater. I was in the theater every night. It's concert hall, the theater, opera house, every night. And they still do. I think, you know, it's like I could go for almost next to nothing, you know, as a student. I didn't have much money, but they had such great systems for the students. I could go for, you know, less than $1 to the theater, you know. So it was an amazing time. And I I was kind of a gopher for the American artist Ed Keenholz. I don't know if you know him. Ed passed away, but he spent half a year in Berlin and half a year in his cabin in Idaho. But he was kind of a constructionist, very, very, very famous and successful in Europe. But I was kind of like a gopher for him because I could speak German and we'd go to flea markets and he would find stuff that he'd put into his objects of art. And but it's just, you know, it's again, I'm like a kid. I need extra money, so this is what I'm doing. And 50 years later, I'm still under the influence of that kind of thinking that went into his creative process. Yeah, it's amazing.
I want to ask you a question. Have you ever been in a performance where all of a sudden the audience starts coughing or you hear the seats rustling and that's a sign that you're not connected with the audience? Has that ever happened to you?
Oh, I think you well, you know this too, Alan. You get a sense of when you got the audience and you both are working on the same wave, and you get a sense uh, when it's going away. And
How did you handle something like that? I mean, you just kept going, or did you?
Well, yeah. Well, in my memory, you keep going and focusing and saying focus sometimes, and some in a weird way, sometimes you do your best work that way, and sometimes you do your best work when you're not feeling well. You know what I mean? It's like you get so focused on it and concentrated that it becomes more meaningful. It's hard. I mean, it's when uh, when you're losing an audience,
when you're dead up there. I mean,
yeah, it's not a good feeling.
I remember I was doing a show at again Westmar. It was a play called Tango, and it was by Shlomo Mertzik. It was a Polish playwright, and I actually had the lead, and had this huge monologue. And I got to the first line, and I blacked out. I forgot where I was. I didn't know what I was saying. My concentration was gone, and it must have been about 10, 15 seconds before I got to the last line. I said the last line. I remember that, but you talk about flop sweat, man. That thing
Yeah.
was, I was like, I didn't know
Well,
what,
that you know,
it was like,
it probably wasn't 10 seconds.
it was
It
an
does seem
amazing thing.
like
And
10
one
years.
other,
Yeah.
I was
We all
doing
know that. Yeah, we all know
summer
that.
stock in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and we were doing this show. It was Born Yesterday.
Ah,
I played not the lead. I was like one of the supporting characters. Played a right hand man of the lead, and came out. I said a line with this. What is this night school? And there was a beautiful laughter. The audience was cracked up. And the following night, I said the line like I said it the night before, and you could have heard a pin drop. It was like I went back to my bed that night. This is when Stanislavski was very big.
yeah,
Up the book and I read Stanislavski, and then what the first thing I read is, "Do not ever repeat what you did
yeah,
last night
yeah.
tonight." And
Or look for it. Even look for that. What happened?
that's what
Yeah.
I did. I was like out of the moment. I got this laugh. I said, "Let me use the same shit." Anyway, enough about me.
No, no. I mean, but that's. I mean, that's true, and you learn that. It's like,
Yeah, it was crazy.
and
Now,
sometimes the audience thinks you're great, and you think you're not great, and they're right. And sometimes you think you're great, and the audience is, kind of lukewarm, and the audience is still right. You know what I mean?
and it happens, and it's a very strange thing when that happens. Um, okay, I'm just trying to read my notes here. I got a couple other questions I want to ask. One of the questions I think you answered, but I want to go over one more time. What is the best advice you were ever given? And I think you mentioned this before. And do you pass that on to your students today? Do you remember what you have been taught? And what do you teach, by the way? Let me get back. Let me transgress for a
Well,
second.
I teach voice, legit voice, classical voice, kind of the Italian method of singing. It's done well for me throughout over 50 years, and I've had some of the best in the world, and so I have private students at the university. I also teach British and American art song from about 1750 to the present, of British composers and American composers. Uh, and then I teach also a class of German lieder, German art song, from about roughly the same time. And then I teach an acting class it's called Acting for Singers. But it's like I know almost all of what I do is like I try to figure out what was important to me, what was I not taught that I had to learn, and why was it important, and why do I feel it's important to pass along to the young people.
Well,
So
do you pass along the stuff that you have learned? I mean, do you still?
absolutely, and then
We
there's
can get
still
over it. It's like baking a cake. You got more ingredients coming in there just from your experience and or whatever, and just your age. But when you were younger and people mentored you and took you and said you got talent, let me help you out. What have you learned? Have you learned stuff from them that you pass on to your students today?
well I think that the thing that I try to emphasize is you know as acting is not necessarily acting, but reacting to the
Right.
what the text you hear. So the important thing, and I didn't make this up. I mean, it's not MARC EMBREE wisdom. It's just theater wisdom. Is to listen and listen actively and listen to what what the information that's coming to you, and then you respond to that in the moment, in time, with what's going on. And so listening is to me primary.
It's
Uh,
key. Listening is what it's all about. If you're not
yeah,
listening, dead. You have to
I
listen.
mean that's it, and also preparation. It's like you cannot be too prepared. And so the more you do, the more preparation you do, the more you're going to be able to do. You follow what I'm saying? And again, it's all kind of relative. Sometimes if you have 6 months to work on something or a year to work on something, it's different than if they call you up on Tuesday and you got to be there Friday or Wednesday or what, but to take advantage of the time you have and the preparation. And then also to me, the routine of going through, kind of like the menu on the airplane, start the engine, you kind of go through a
Yeah,
routine and get it done and try to develop the focus and the concentration. It's just like I tell my kids, my young people, I shouldn't say kids, they're adults,
they
but
like your children. They like your kids.
well, they are in a funny way, but it's that, if you do that, if you establish that routine, if you establish a method of getting it done, and your brain, aligns itself in such a way that it becomes less stressful, it becomes easier, that it becomes less time consuming. We have there was a guy, what was his name? Green, Morris Green. He worked with football players in the 70s, and he had a friend who was a violinist or an instrumentalist in New York. And he says, "Well, why don't you work with me on the technique of getting centered?" So he did that and became a whole big thing. And we've worked a couple times with one of his proteges. His name is Noah Kajiyama, and he has a whole system of centering. And now we can do it in just a few seconds, but it took a while to, where you focus and relax and see yourself accomplishing and see yourself doing outstanding work, seeing yourself doing the work that you want to do. And so that, that's another part of it, another routine. And when you're young, and you probably, I mean, I would hear all of this stuff, and then I just say, "Oh, you know what I mean?" It's like I wouldn't treat it in a mature fashion. I wouldn't treat it, it's like I would go through it, but it's just like I just want to sing high notes and wow the audience, and then after a while you realize that you've got to do more, and you've got
Absolutely.
to,
Well, let me tell
if
you
you
something. I think that your students are very lucky to have you as a teacher. I
well,
mean,
I'm lucky to have them. I mean, I really, Al, I'm very grateful.
let me just elaborate on that. If you weren't as good as I'm learning that you are, they wouldn't be that way either. If you were boring and they didn't feel that you cared, they wouldn't be that way. You're making that happen. You are the catalyst in your classroom, and you're doing a great job. What I'd like to do now is I have a couple of slides that you sent me. I want
All right.
to maybe we can talk about that a little bit. And I don't know how long we're talking so far.
40.
No, okay, we're good, man. We're good.
All right.
Okay, do you see this?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. We all know what this is. This is Annie.
Annie, yeah, right.
Big Daddy Warbucks.
Yeah,
Where was this?
that was in New Orleans. It's my Summer Lyric Theater in New Orleans. It's kind of my home theater. I made my debut in 1973 with them, and then this was taken when I was pretty much at City Opera. I was doing mostly opera, and a friend of mine, Jim Miller, who's a stage director, fantastic stage director, he saw me, in the hallway, and he says, Mark, he says, you'd make a great Daddy Warbucks. Why don't you do Daddy Warbucks with me this summer? And I said, I don't know. I said, that's a kind of a wild presumption that you have there. And I had the greatest time. And that little girl there with me is now a mother. She has, kids in college, and her name is Rachel.
How
And
old were you here? Do you remember?
there I was probably mid-30s.
Very cool.
Yeah.
How long did it run?
Just it was summer stock, summer stock.
For a whole week. When I
Yeah.
was doing summer stock, it was you get the script like on a Saturday night after the show was done, and
Yeah, well,
sets would
it
come down.
wasn't that it wasn't quite like that, but yeah, it's pretty fast. We put the show together in 2 weeks, and
We did it in a week.
week of performance.
We get what we do on a Saturday night was the final show. After the show, the sets would come down, the lights would come down, new sets would come up, the lights were set. You got your script. I think they gave you maybe they gave you Sunday off, and then Monday you were back on the boards performing at night, rehearsing during the day.
Yeah.
That's all you did.
Yeah.
It was just a great experience, man. As a matter of fact, there was one guy had the lead. We woke up Wednesday morning, and he left during the night. And there was another actor that stepped up to the plate, took the role, and he learned the whole play. Everyone was taking turns, running lines with him, and he
Wow.
opened up like that Saturday or Friday, whatever it was. It was like an amazing thing. Great experience. Anyway, let's go to the next slide here. Hold on. Here we go. All right. Look at you, man. Look at you.
That's from, I want to say, the early 90s. That's Billy Bigelow in Carousel, same theater, but with my dear friend Leslie Castet. Leslie had she lives in New Orleans now. She's from Laplace, Louisiana, but at that time she was living in New York and doing a lot of Broadway. She did a lot of shows on Broadway, and magnificent talent, just a wonderful talent. And she still does a lot of. It's so hard. Her youngest daughter just started college this fall, so it's kind of shocking to me because we've known each other over 40 years, I guess.
Keep in touch with her.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. She's a dear friend, and she lives in New Orleans. She does a lot of film work there. She's done a lot of TV work, and she does a lot of theater in New Orleans now. She's also directing, but she and her husband have a wine shop in New Orleans, the Wine Institute of New Orleans, and they're just a great friends.
All right, next slide.
That was Camelot, same theater. That was I don't know, that was probably mid-90s. And that was when Leslie was in that too, and another friend of mine, Richard Hutton. Richard is a local actor in New Orleans, but that was the Merlin in that show was my mentor, Frank Monachino, who was a great influence. And Richard Hutton's father, Jack Hutton, was another. These are two guys that really were linchpins of my life. Jack on the music end and Frank on the theater end. They believed in me and trusted me and put up with me. So I'm very fortunate.
Yes, man. Good. Was this a summer stock production also?
Yeah, it was in the summer. They do a summer season of 3 shows every summer. And sometimes I would be in all 3 shows. What's that?
Ran more than a week then.
Just a week. I mean, they ran 2 weeks of rehearsal, then shows, and then rehearsal and shows for. It's like a 9-10 week season, but it's still flourishing. They had a great season this summer. I'm going to go back, I think, in May to do a fundraiser for them to kind of celebrate my 50th anniversary.
Okay, good for
Yeah.
you. Congratulations.
Yeah, I haven't been as active in the last almost 15 years or so. I did do they had a gala for the 50th anniversary of the theater, and I went down for that, and we had a great time. So
Good for you. All right, let's see if there's another one here. Hold on. There we go. What
that's
you looking
that's
at?
the second show I did. That's with Rita Lovett, who's now still a dear friend of mine. We talk, I don't want to say weekly, but we talk on a regular basis, and that's Kiss Me Kate, and that was kind of there was the second show I did there, but it was one where I kind of found my acting legs. I mean, it something just clicked, and I started. I found my voice. My theater voice, and so that was a great experience. I did I did it, several times throughout the decades, but that was the first time I did it. It was a lot of fun.
This wasn't summer stock now, was it?
Yeah.
Okay, another summer stock. Love
Yeah.
it. Listen, if anyone can get into summer stock, any young actor, even an old actor, it's a great experience.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And
It's like being in boot camp, nothing but theater. You have
yeah.
no time for anything else. And it's what I loved about theater when I first started when at Westmore is I used to just love rehearsal. I used to love an empty stage. There was a musty odor about a theater stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I actually felt like I was home. It was
Yeah. Yeah.
a great thing. Just putting on a magic show. You sit around a table, you read a script. All of a sudden, you got lines, you got a character. All of a sudden, you got makeup, and you got costume, you got light, you got set, and it's a magical thing. It's a
No,
fantastic.
I agree, Al. I agree. It's I have uh when my daughter was 12, she got diagnosed with ADHD. And so being, I learned everything I could about ADHD, and it said, and I I thought, well, this is everybody, isn't it? And so I asked my doctor. I said, "Do you think I have ADHD?" And he said, "Well, I've always thought you had ADHD, Mark." He says, "But you manage it so well that I didn't until you mentioned it. I wasn't going to. It changed my life. It's like I found I can manage it now." Before it was just I would get really frustrated, and part of the reason I think it's like in theater was kind of a respite from all of that kind of constant mental energy going on, is that you have you can focus and you can use it, and it's kind of an asset, really. I mean, there are things that get in the way, but theater was kind of the way. It's like you have your lines, you get out there, and nobody can bother you for the extent of the play. You know what I mean?
A
And
similar experience of why I got into theater, which I didn't find out until I was in my 40s. I have dyslexia.
uh-huh.
And I was always that kid in school. My parents were up there as much as I was. He's a
Yeah,
smart kid.
yeah,
He's lazy, and all
yeah,
that. I didn't know what the hell I was reading, like all this narrative stuff. But when
yeah,
I got to dialogue, I can make heads or tails of the dialogue. And I just got intrigued with theater, and that's how I got
yeah,
involved.
yeah.
I
Well, I
can,
mean, I think that's the thing, is that uh, I don't know. It's I don't know how you feel about the dyslexia, but it's like it's really kind of ADD for me it's kind of a blessing, and it because there's a lot I can do because of it, and it interferes some now and then.
I'm not comparing the two. What I'm doing
Yeah,
is I'm giving you a little thing. One of the reasons why I got into theater.
yeah,
I'm not There's no comparison here. Let's go to the next slide here.
Ah, that street scene. We did that in Ludwigshafen in Germany, and then we had a run in Berlin at the Theater des Westens in Berlin. That's kind of fun in that when I was in school in Berlin, I would walk by the theater, the Theater of the West. It was called. I walked by there every day from the subway to school. And I think, boy, if I could only just play that place, I would be a success, you know.
That
So
video I have of you is from Berlin.
This is from Berlin, yeah.
Okay. Great video.
And I was very fortunate. They filmed it for television and it was put out on DVD, and it was you know, one of the highlights of my time. We had a great cast, great people, great conductor, great stage director, and
That's so beautiful. I mean,
wonderful colleagues. It was a wonderful time in my life. Yeah, absolutely.
Good for you. All right, hold on one second. Oh, there you go. Papa, there you go.
I have 3 grandkids. They call me Papa Mark. So I got
This in Michigan?
This is Michigan. This is our home. That's our sunroom with our garden in the back. That's where we live now.
Mazel tov, as we say.
Yeah, I'm really you know, a very lucky man. I'm very grateful. I have a wonderful wife who Jane Bunnell. Jane is a great artist in her own right. She was at the Metropolitan Opera for 28 seasons, 28 years. And she teaches at the MSU now too. She's a very successful teacher. And we still sing, we still perform. Like I'm doing a concert on my birthday. When I turned 60, I thought I'm just going to do a concert of stuff I like to do.
Well, I
And
have some other videos of you performing, I guess, in your college, in the university.
pass a good time. And so this will be like the 13th year, because one year we didn't do it because of the pandemic, but it just kind of became a popular thing. So Jane and I've got some friends coming from Chicago, and some of my colleagues here, the faculty members. These are just wonderful artists, and they all, you know, donate their time to do it. And
once you do this, if they're going to videotape it, get me a copy. I want to give an update.
I'll say, well, hopefully we can. We're having a little our, you know, the great camera guy we had was so successful that a TV station hired him. So and they haven't found his replacement yet, but we'll probably have one of our doctoral students video it. I don't know if we're going to be able to stream it, but well, if you know, if we get it done, I'll send it to you. It's usually a lot of fun.
Okay, hold on. And I
Oh
guess
my, that's Jane. That's my wife. That's in
the anniversary, 50th anniversary, guys.
This is this year was 32nd year, 32nd anniversary.
Oh, 32nd. I'm jumping the gun here.
That's okay.
50 or 50.
Yeah, well, I hope, you know, but this was taken in Urbino in Italy. We used to go there in the summertime, and a friend of ours has a place there, and they have a summer program for young singers, and we would teach there, and I would do some directing and stuff.
She was an opera singer, or she still is an opera singer.
She still sings. We're both kind of not doing so much opera anymore, but she was a great artist. Sang at the Metropolitan Opera for 28 years. Has sung with some of the great singers of the world, and she's the love of my life, and I'm very fortunate to.
You are. Let me tell you something. You had you have not had. You have a very good life. I'm very happy.
I'm very lucky. I agree.
I think, Mark, it's terrific that you have done something that you've loved throughout your life. You didn't have. I didn't ask you a question, but did you have other jobs besides this outside the field?
Mostly, I mean, mostly I work. I mean, because I could do musical theater and opera and concert work. You know, I was very fortunate. one time I like at Christmas time one year, and I think in 1987, I lost like 5 months worth of work. People, things were canceled. People, they shifted things. So I lost the work. So I went to work for Time Life. I sold. This is back in the early days of
Don't tell me you
telemarketing.
sold books on the phone.
I sold books on the phone.
I did
I,
that in Colorado, man. It was
yeah, but
1976. Oh my
yeah,
God.
the thing is, it was early on. People, it wasn't an annoying thing, and people would talk to you. And uh, I, I did very well. They wanted me to stay, and then I got a Kiss Me Kate somewhere. So of course, I took the theater job. But I still got checks from them. Because if you know what it's like, if you sold the
After 10
series,
weeks,
you would get a check. So for
absolutely.
about 6 months after I left, they just kept sending me checks. So
I had guys that this is in 76, and what they did is they had a history series, history
yeah,
book,
right.
and they couldn't sell it. So what they did is they changed the cover. Hope I'm not getting anyone in trouble. They changed the cover to bicentennial series, and these
Ah,
are what they call PD5. It was called a PD5.
yeah,
These are people that are in the process of getting one or multiple
right.
series. So some of them say, I call them up and I go, Mr. Embry, how are you? I want to thank you from Time Life Books for supporting us. And because you're such a good customer, we have a special series just for our customers called the Bicentennial Series. And I want to get the first book out to you, okay? And sometimes they would say, good, and you had a little bell on your desk. You ring the bell and
Yeah.
you get a little button up on the board or whatever. But there were some guys who would go, listen, you got to stop sending me books. I got books in the bathroom. I got books in the closet.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
under my sink. I'm going crazy with these books.
yeah,
Stop sending me these books. And I would say, but this is special just for you guys. He goes, okay, send it.
yeah.
It
Well,
was
they were
great.
good books,
They
I
were
mean,
great books. They were
yeah,
good. They were great books. They
yeah.
were terrific. Anyway, listen, where's my friend Yule? What we're going to do, we're going to have to cut this. I think it was it was great talking to you.
Great talking with you, Al.
We
And
can
well, I
talk.
look forward. I'm going to have your granola right now.
All right, my
Uh,
man. I want
Goody's
to do
granola.
another one with you because you have a lot to talk about. And you make my job a lot easier where I don't have to talk that much.
I'm sorry. I
Oh, no,
just yeah.
I'm
You ask
giving
these
you a
questions,
compliment.
and then you ask the questions, and my mind kind of explodes with.
That's what it's all about. I'm praising you. I think you're a terrific guy. I'm so happy we met up, and I'm glad you remember the pig roast we had at the farm. That
Yeah, I do. I
was a
do.
great day, and it was an unbelievable day. And we're going to see you soon. If I can get my man Yule, that's my tech guy, by the way.
Yeah.
Very wants to hear that. And if you were here, I would have you sign my wall.
Okay.
Back
Well,
there.
I'll do that. So we'll be in New York sometime, so I'll come sign your wall.
So I hope we stay in touch. I mean, it was
Yeah.
great. Um, again, I want to thank you again. And anybody that watching this thing, please like it, subscribe to it, share it. Give Mr. Embry a break. Give me a break. Help us out. And if
And
anyone watching this thing wants to tell their story, you can either come to my place or we can do it on a Zoom. If you have a story to tell, maybe you give somebody some inspiration on what they're doing. Please give me a call. Remember, the biggest thing I found of people not doing anything is fear. They're afraid of what other people are going to think. They're afraid that when they put their stuff out there, people are going to make fun of them. The only thing I can tell you is don't care. Just do your thing. If it's up to you, just do your thing. And I'm sure, Mark, you had the same thing, what I'm talking about. You
well,
can't.
here's another incentive. I just got a big package of Goody's granola in the mail yesterday, so I highly recommend that little incentive.
Well, this is an unsolicited thing. I didn't ask him to do that. So
Oh no, nobody. He didn't say that. I'm just telling you. It's beautifully packaged, and it's like uh, eating a cookie in a pouch. No, wait, that's not right. What's
hey,
the slogan?
it's like a cookie in a bag, or it's the snack you didn't know you were waiting for.
Yeah, there we go. I knew
Mark,
there was.
say goodbye to everybody.
Bye bye. Thank you, Al. It was a great time. I
This
appreciate
thing
you.
will be out in about 2 weeks, hopefully, God willing. I'll send you a copy. It'll be on
Awesome.
YouTube. My Place with Goody, episode 10. And God bless, man. It's
All
just
right.
a
God
pleasure
bless you.
connecting with you at
Thank you, Al, and wishing you much success, continued success, and it's great to see you. Great to hear from you, and
Hope you
you
had a
look a
good
lot
time.
younger than me. I don't know what's going on there with that, but you know,
I cut my hair.
yeah, me
Good
too.
thing. I don't know what the hell it is.
Remember that back in this, 60s, we had hair down, to our
My
navels.
hair was down to and there were times that I would sit there with a hair dryer and blow it out, and this thing would come out like here, and people from the back would say I looked like a big mushroom or something. Listen, those were the days, man. You want to look at these styles today, 20, 30 years from now, and you go, what was I thinking?
What were we thinking? I know,
I hope you had a good time here,
I
Mark.
had a great time. I had a great time, and it was fun to reminisce with you.
It was great, and I love your
Those are
story.
great days. Absolutely.
All right,
All my
then.
love to everybody. That's all we can do.
Tell your wife I said happy anniversary.
Will do. Thanks, Sal.
J'aime le son du corps, le soir au fond des bois. Soit qu'il chante les pleurs de la misère au bois, oh l'adieu du sincère qui laisse fait la taille. Et que le vent du nord porte de feuille en feuille. J'aime le son du corps, le soir au fond des bois. Que de fois, seul dans l'ombre amélie de Marie, j'ai souri de l'entendre et plus souvent pleurer. Quand je vais rire de ce bruit prophétique qui prédisait la mort de paladins antiques. Bien souvent seul dans l'ombre amélie de Marie, j'ai souri de l'entendre et plus souvent pleurer. Âme de chevalier, relevez-vous encore, et ce vous qui parlez avec la la voix du corps. Roncevaux, Roncevaux, dans la sombre vallée. L'ombre du grand Lolland est donc à consoler. J'aime le son du corps, le soir au fond des bois. J'aime le son